It has been a year since October the 7th, and in that time we have seen devastation and destruction from Israel, the likes we have not seen in a very, very long time. Not just in Palestine, but throughout the Middle East, Israel has wrought destruction and death upon the people surrounding them. And I wanted to talk to you about some of that devastation we have seen. Before we get started, in the description of this video and most of my videos, you'll find a donation link to UNRWA. UNRWA is a United Nations organisation that has worked with the Palestinian people since 1949 to help support them in their displacement and help them survive under the brutal occupation they face from Israel. We'll go into more details as to why UNRWA really needs your donation later on in the video. Let's start with Gaza. In Gaza alone, we have seen about 60,000 people be murdered by Israel. And that's only the people we are able to count. That does not include people who are buried under the rubble who have not been retrieved. That does not include people whose bodies are not recognizable from the destruction. We have seen videos and images of people carrying the dead bodies of who they assume are their loved ones in carrier bags because their bodies have been blown to smithereens, and the officials have told them, we can't confirm this is your loved one, but here are some body parts that might be your loved one. Do you know how just horrifyingly disgusting that must be for someone to witness? 60,000 people, that is Anfield Stadium. That is a whole football stadium worth of people, and that is the low estimate. The higher estimate is over 150,000 people. That is Wembley plus the Wembley Arena plus much, much more. That is horrifying, the amount of people that Israel has killed in a single year. And that is just the people they have killed. We can then talk about the absolute devastation they have wrought upon Gaza. They have destroyed over 40% of Gaza's buildings, and that is a pretty low estimate as well. The United Nations, as of time of recording, have said it will take at the minimum 15 years for Gaza to rebuild to what it was prior to Israel's onslaught upon Gaza. 15 whole years to get back to that point. And not only that, things like rubble, things like, dealing with rubble can cause long-term effects. The people who are currently living amongst these long-term effects of the rubble, of the disaster, of the poor sanitation, of the lack of food because of Israel, they will die of long-term issues far earlier than they probably would had Israel not been able to devastate Gaza. Rubble can cause cancer, breathing in that air, dealing with those toxic chemicals. A lack of food for sustained periods can give you long-term issues in life. The psychological scarring these people will go through, both young and old, will scar them and shorten their lifespans. We're already seeing people dying of heart attacks caused by the airstrikes from Israel. It is absolutely horrifying. The number of people killed by this war will be, it's not even a war, by this devastation from Israel will be humongous. We will not be able to truly count the people murdered by Israel from their attacks on Gaza this time around. It is horrifying. Gaza has lost numerous long-term records, family records, historical records. Almost every single one of their schools has been destroyed. Schools are regularly targeted for attacks by Israel. All of the universities in Gaza have been destroyed. Long-term scholasticide will be devastating for Gaza. The Palestinian people are a people who value education so high because they see it as a way to try and escape the occupation. Taking away their education, taking away their ability to educate themselves is Israel's way of putting down the Palestinians in the long run. How devastating is that? If you imagine every single university in your country is blown away, how badly will that affect the next generation and the generation after that? That is Israel's goal. That is the wanton destruction of Israel to devastate the lives of Palestinians forever, to devastate the Palestinians so badly they must flee. And talking about fleeing, Israel took over the only escape Palestinians have from Gaza. They blocked all exits. You have settlers standing in the way of all the exits that go into so-called Israel. And Israel has taken over the Rafah crossing, which goes into Egypt. They've handed it over to a proxy who are at the whims of Israel and the United States. The cost to get out was already extortionately high because Egyptian officials had to be bribed by Palestinians. Now Israeli officials and pro-Israelis need to be bribed even more for Palestinians to leave. And even when Palestinians leave, they do so knowing they'll never be allowed to return, because Israel does not allow Palestinians the right to return. Israel does not allow Palestinians their right to return to their homeland as per their international right. That is the destruction Israel wants, the long-term removal of the Palestinian people from their homeland. They will destroy the land. They will destroy the people. They will destroy the infrastructure. They will destroy the schooling. They will destroy the souls of Palestinians. And that is what Israel always has done. And now we move to the West Bank, the other part of Palestine. And since last October, Israel have increased their colonization efforts of the West Bank. They have constructed more and more illegal settlements. Ben-Gvir, a prominent politician, has been photographed and videoed physically giving automatic weapons to illegal settlers, illegal colonizers, so they may kill Palestinians in the West Bank to defend their settlements, colonies. And we have this on footage. The BBC had footage of literal Israeli settlers murdering Palestinians in cold blood whilst Israeli occupation forces watched on. That is the society that Israel has created, that Israel builds. That doesn't even include the 500 people murdered by Israel in the West Bank alone. That doesn't include the numerous towns and cities and refugee camps and roads and statues that have been destroyed by Israel in the West Bank since October. They take specially made bulldozers and rip up roads, buildings, shops, roundabouts, infrastructure. They just destroy them completely for no reason, for no justification. And this is something that their Western allies will say, oh guys, don't do that. But will never stop Israel doing it. They will not stop the export of bulldozers to Israel. They will not stop the export of weapons to Israel. They go on and gleefully watch Israel murder and destroy the West Bank, murder and destroy Gaza. Now we look at both as a whole. Israel has taken thousands of people captive as hostages from Palestine since last October. You talk about the hostages in Gaza, but you never talk about the thousands of hostages that Israel hold. These are people that Israel takes without warrant. They have administrative detention, where they go around and round up people, often in the middle of the night, take them from their homes, take them from their families, including children, and lock them up without any sentencing. In that time, these people face horrific deeds at the hands of Israelis. We have seen literal footage of Israelis gang assaulting Palestinian prisoners, so much so that they may die. We have seen them beating Palestinian prisoners. We have seen them starving Palestinian prisoners. And do you know what Israeli society does? Israeli society protests for the right to beat and gang assault Palestinian prisoners. That is the society that Western politicians support. They support the gang assault of Palestinians by Israelis. And that is only the things we know and only the things we see. Imagine the things they do to these innocent Palestinian hostages when no one is watching, when no one is seeing what they are doing. And that is just what's happening in Palestine. We turn our heads to Lebanon now, and we see that Israel has killed over 1,000 people in Lebanon in a matter of weeks. They have killed more people in Lebanon in about 7 to 8 days than they killed in 34 days in 2006. The absolute destruction and devastation of Lebanon, including the capital of Lebanon, is insanity. The very fact Israel is allowed to destroy and bomb a sovereign nation, not just an occupied territory, a sovereign nation's land without reprisal, with the full backing and support of Western militaries, is abhorrent. This is as if Canada started to bomb parts of the US and everyone said, that's fine. The US is allowed to be bombed by Canada because Canada felt the Proud Boys were getting in the way, so civilians must die so the Proud Boys may be gotten rid of. That is exactly what Israel is doing, and we see Western media, we see Western politicians completely support the murder and destruction of Lebanon. We see them completely back and support the invasion of Lebanon with no international backing, with no international body saying, yeah, go ahead and do it. Israel just went in, and after the fact, the West has said, yeah, it's fine. Let them illegally invade another sovereign nation. That is the circumstances we are dealing with. And that's not to include the absolute destruction we have seen of parts of Lebanon. We have seen massive civilian infrastructure be destroyed by Israel with massive tonnage bombs. We have seen entire villages leveled by Israel. And the excuse that, oh, Hezbollah was firing more at Israel, Hezbollah's rockets were targeted at military facilities. Israel builds their military facilities in or right next to civilian areas, whereas Israel decided to purely just attack civilian areas. Also, over 80% of the rockets exchanged between Hezbollah and Israel have come from Israel into Lebanon. You can't dispute the fact that Israel is the overall aggressor here in all instances. And we're still not done. Israel has decided to bomb Syria. They've just decided, hey, we want to bomb Syria now. They already colonized and own land that is Syria's in the Golan Heights. And they have decided we get to bomb Syria because we can. They've bombed Damascus, they've bombed the airports in Syria, and no one supports Assad here. But to just be able to be allowed to bomb Syria just because they want to just shows the absolute wanton destruction of Israel and the absolute desire for destruction from Israel against its surrounding countries. Israel is a threat to every single country surrounding it. Israel has chosen to bomb Yemen. They've decided they get to bomb civilian areas of Yemen because Houthi rebels are stopping shipping going into Israel. They have fired some rockets at Israel as a response to Israel bombing civilian areas of Yemen. But the Houthi rebels, rightfully so, are stopping any goods going into Israel. They have blockaded goods getting to Israel. This is not, a wanton act of destruction like Israel does to its surrounding neighbors. They have stopped goods going to Israel. It is like a boycott. Like we should all be boycotting all Israeli goods and all Israeli companies and all companies that work in Israel. The Houthis are stopping any shipping getting into Israel, which has economically affected Israel, which is great. But then Israel and its allies being allowed to murder Yemenis because of that shows the absolute disparity in the desire for death and destruction. And finally, we touch on Iran. Iran hasn't yet been blighted by Israel's attacks, and once again, I'm going to have to preface this, the Iranian government is not great. The Iranian people are not their government, just like the Syrian people are not Assad. But Israel being allowed to destroy Iranian diplomatic centers and Iranian embassies in other countries and get away with it and kill Iranian diplomats and senior officials without any condemnation from the West, that is insane. That is as if Canada blew up the US embassy in the UK because of the Proud Boys in the US. Why would a country be allowed to do that? Unless the West have a vested interest in allowing Israel to destroy the Middle East. They have a vested interest in the economic outcomes of Israel. They have a vested interest in having a colonial outpost in Israel, funneling money into Israel, and Israel then funneling that money back to politicians. Also, corporations and politicians can continue to enrich themselves off of the Middle East using Israel as their colonial outpost. We have seen 1 year of absolute destruction in the Middle East due to Israel, and it's not Israel alone doing this. The United States, the United Kingdom, Germany, Australia, at times France, have all played a part in helping Israel destroy the Middle East. Jordan have played a part in helping Israel. Egypt have played a part in helping Israel to allow Israel to try and destroy the Middle East. So much so, we had a vice presidential candidate saying the expansion of Israel is a must. The expansion of Israel. A colonial entity that is fine and is able to murder tens, if not hundreds of thousands of people within a year. 1 year of destruction from Israel against its neighbours, and I pray we don't see another one.